Well, hello and good evening, and welcome to Real Talk with the Cummings.
We're going to have a great show tonight.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we have a wonderful guest.
Yes, we do.
But before we do that, let's talk about what happened to us here in Silver City.
I know, it was like
an
amazing hailstorm first.
Oh, it was,
with winds
yeah.
and all sorts of stuff out of the blue. And at the end, got followed by a beautiful double rainbow.
A double rainbow.
Which is something you don't see too often. You know, it's not one of those things.
I don't think I've ever seen a full one like we saw here.
Yes.
I mean, this was just
amazing. And here's
incredible.
There's a little video that Lena took.
I mean, it was like from end to end.
Yes.
And it was like really shiny. This does not do it justice.
No,
this isn't even in HD right now, but
yeah,
it was just an amazing sight to see. Yeah,
the HD didn't show very well, but that was our double rainbow. And let me go ahead and stop this thing. Exit screen and stop it. I'll keep going. But actually, there was a picture that you could actually find it here. This is
it's like
going
squirrely on us.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't know. Let me just let me just forget about it. We'll skip it because I can't seem to find it. I don't want to end up messing with things. But anyway, amazing. It
was. I mean, when we went outside, it was like, the picture just couldn't do it justice. I was trying to capture it every which way, but it's just like some things are just better seen by the naked eye.
And talking about double rainbow has a meaning, which is talking about, because it flips the colors, and it actually talks about being in touch with the heavens, or a new beginning, or a new world, or a new shift of paradigm. And I believe that the guest we have today is very much in touch with the tools to provide you to be able to do that, to step out of the material world and always looking from outside of you to start looking within. Today we have Indira Dyal Dominguez. And by the way, Dominguez is my mother's maiden name, so I have to ask her where, because I'm Cuban. So Dominguez, yes. So from the time Indira was very young, a feeling of disconnection led her on a path of searching. Who am I and why am I here? In her 30s, she had a profound awareness that the awareness were not outside of her.
It was then that she accessed a new awareness of her mind and herself as two separate and distinct paradigms. In that moment, the methodology she teaches currently, Connect.Listen.Trust.Act, arose as the tools to fulfilling her journey and purpose.
In 2014, she wrote the book, You, a Spiritual Being on a Spiritual Journey, a new paradigm for living life for anyone seeking to find and live from their self as a way of life.
These 4 simple tools, Connect, Listen, Trust, Act, are now available for everyone to live the life they want. Indira has guided and trained thousands of people for over 20 years, giving them access to pursue and fulfill their purpose and their dreams.
And now welcome, Indira.
Hi, Mark and Lena. It's great to be here. It's really great to be with you. And by the way, the Dominguez is from my husband's name.
Wow.
And when I say I'm Indian, like my ancestry is Indian from India. And so I have this Indian name Indira, and then I have this Dominguez. But luckily I lived in Puerto Rico for 6 years. So I speak some Spanish, so I can go with the Dominguez. I can hang with it.
Nice.
So that's my mom's maiden name. I'm part of my grandfather, and we're from Havana, Cuba. And you're from?
My parents are from Puerto Rico, but myself,
yeah, she was
great.
Born.
You were born in the
I was born. I came when I was 5 years old. So.
Oh, good. Well, okay. We're all in the same boat here.
Yes,
great.
Definitely.
So let's just shift to Spanish. Vamos a hablar
español entonces.
Sí, está bien.
Can you take us to your youth, Indira, when your search for answers began? What were the answers and questions you had back then?
Well, my experience is that since I was a child, as long as I could remember, being here in my what I now could put language to, my physical form, just didn't seem like 2 + 2 = 4. There was always a sense that there was something else beyond life around me. And so, do we have an echo?
Do you hear one? No.
Yes.
We don't hear an echo on our
Oh,
side.
okay. Okay.
Maybe you have the volume too loud on your speaker on your end, or.
Okay, let me
But
look
she's
at
got her headphones
Yeah,
on.
she's
that. Is that fine? That's better?
Yeah, we don't hear an echo on this end. So.
Okay, good. Okay. So what happened is that inner awareness propelled me as a teenager and a young adult to seek, because I just didn't experience that what my being here was about made sense to me. Like, okay, I'm going to get married and have a family or get a job and make money. But somehow that never landed for me. Like, this was me being myself. And so my journey really included reading a lot. I grew up Roman Catholic. I found myself going to many different, expressions of learning the inner spiritual self. I went to an ashram and I found myself, meditating for a year. I ended up doing, many different forms of getting into my inner self. And I found myself actually spending 10 years in the transformation of people's lives. And I thought that was, hey, that's me, that's the biggest expression of myself. And so when that wasn't it, the awareness that something that I was looking for did not exist outside of me became profoundly acute. And it was then that I stopped everything in life, and I had a room in my home where I would just go. I used to call it my meditation room. And it was in that space that in a particular moment, I had what I would probably call an epiphany, a moment of awareness where myself became who I was, and my mind became a tool for the journey that I'm here for. And that actually happened in 2000. So for 15 years, I've been leading programs because in that moment, I actually got the experience of connecting to myself on demand as a way of living my life, and then listening, trusting, and acting. And so I just begun to share those tools with others. And what occurred, Mark and Lina, is this whole realm opened up. Sort of like, the world's not flat, it's round. This awareness that you're not your mind, but who you are is yourself, began to arise as a new way to live and experience life as a human being. And so it was then last year in 2014 that I published a book that actually speaks this whole conversation and brings that contextual shift to any human being's life. Because one of the things that is very much a way we live life as human beings is we live from our mind as who we are. And in that paradigm, it limits what we'll talk about on the show, your whole experience of identifying who you are.
Definitely, and most people live their life based on what everybody else tells them. I mean, what your teacher, your doctors, a politician, your priest, and no one ever goes within. to find the answer and realize that everything we need, it's like we have a little blueprint of what we need to know within ourselves. And very few people know how to access that because we have been disempowered from the time we're little. So it was an amazing thing that you did, that even when you were younger, and I think a lot of us who are old souls, when we get here this time around, we're like, it just doesn't feel right. This getting up from 9 to 5 to go to work and do the things and get married and have kids, and the stuff they expect us to do is just so pro-growth, so robotic. And when we tap into ourselves and really communicate or connect with our higher self, we realize, okay, this paradigm is not the right paradigm. There's something more. And a lot of people will go further like you did, and like many of us do. Other people will just, just follow that same cheapo mentality and never get anywhere.
I think I find it amazing, though, for me in my journey, is that I was taught from the time I was a little child, as a professing Christian at the time, that I needed to look outside of myself to find the answers. And it was only up until recently where I've even allowed myself to accept the fact that there are no answers that are going to come from above. Everything that I need is right here inside of me that I can find inside if I go deep inside.
Yes. It's great that Mark what you're sharing, because I say when I lead events that you don't have to go and sit on a mountaintop anymore for 10 years to have direct access to yourself. So imagine that just on like flipping a switch, you can tune into the station of yourself for answers that are unique to you. And I actually feel that why this conversation is coming out now, personally, I feel like I'm more a conduit for conversation. So it's not like I own a conversation. It's more like I'm a vehicle or a vessel for this paradigm, because I do feel that we are in a time when what's really occurring is the journey for each person to access their self as who they are. And it's where we have so much disconnect around us. I mean, I was listening a lot to, your shows and the experiences that people go through. And one of the things that I bring out in the events I do and in my website is that when the mind is the only place you go to, it keeps you separate, alone, disconnected, fearful, concerned, worried, and on your own. And it doesn't matter how many people you have around you, that's your experience of life.
And that's why we see everyone in this world has either a depressive condition, anxiety, and all sorts of mental, what the psychiatrical community likes to call a disorder, and it has nothing to do with your psychological condition. It's all to do with your lack of spirituality, your lack of connection to self.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I'm so with you here. So I am that the era of having everything at our fingertips, we see more, we experience more visually than ever before. So what has occurred is the mind has become more dynamic. The mind has become more of a powerful mechanism. See, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, you didn't have that much evoking the mind. So you didn't experience it as powerfully. But now, that's why a 6-year-old kid could take a gun and shoot it, because they don't have, the mind is just is the most sophisticated computer we have, and it's just going to act on its own. So without the paradigm called I'm not my mind, but who I am is the self. And so in my book, we start with the chapter of conception. Because conception is when you chose to be in this physical form. But what happens is from the time we're born, we're taught to use the mind to live life. And what has occurred is we identify the mind as who we are. So whatever the mind is communicating, we're listening to. So what the tools of Connect, Listen, Trust, and Act does is that it disconnects the mind as you, and it actually connects you to yourself as you. And you start to listen to yourself more than you're listening to your mind. And you start to act more from yourself. And when that happens, it's a different world, and your reality is different.
Definitely. And what I find with all this modern technology and social media and television and the programming that we are being bombarded with from the time we're little and we're sitting in front of that TV set, we don't even, it's like there's this disconnect with self, and the mind is one that's taking control because they govern our minds with all these messages.
But it's like children are already like pre-programmed when they come into this world to know how to use an iPad or a computer and stuff like that, whereas generations before didn't have that ability. It seems like these days children have that ability.
And that's why we have so much mental illnesses, quote unquote, because of the excess amount of stimulation of the mind.
Yes, and here's the thing, you know what, Lina and Mark, that's not going away. But what happens is, I do believe that it's all happening to bring something else forth. You see, because the human race cannot continue to live from the mind as the only dimension of who you are. See, why the kids and the babies and the teenagers, if you notice, there's a new energy emerging. See, they are vibrating in the knowing of their self. But if the only paradigm you're bringing that to is that where the mind is resonating as you, you're in a disconnect immediately. So what happens is you go more to check out in life. You watch more games, you take stuff to, check out, you use social media in a way that the mind is actually using it. But when you can act from yourself, all of that becomes a tool, a pathway to bring you into life.
Indira, what, in your opinion, why do humans struggle so much with self?
Well, why that struggle is occurring is because the journey we're on, and I talk about a new paradigm. It's hard to understand the new paradigm because you're in the paradigm of the mind. You can only get the paradigm when you're living it. When people thought the world was flat, it was inconceivable that it was round until they began to experience it. So in this paradigm of self, it's the only reason we're here. So if you're here to be you, which is yourself, but you keep acting from your mind, you are there is a struggle all the time, and it's getting heightened and heightened and heightened. Because everybody wants to be known, everybody wants to be unique, everybody wants to be special. But that's not bad from the self, because it's the self wanting to be itself. Except the mind takes it and says, oh, you need to go do this, you need to go do that to be you. Because it looks into the world and defines that. So that struggle is what we're going to be in until we take our last breath. Because that's the journey we're on, is to be ourselves.
What I've noticed with the community, the trans community, is the new kids, or the what I like to call crystal children that are here, are being redirected incorrectly, and they're saying that they're being born in the wrong body, which to me that's absurd. No one's born in the wrong body. They're so in tune and charged and connected, but it's like the world doesn't let them fully be connected to this paradigm, so it's created as a pathology. And these kids that are brilliant, they're wonderful kids, are being directed towards the body, that they have to change their body to be a gender that they think they are. When these kids are actually very two-spirited, very smart, intelligent, and wholesome and filled with light, we are guiding them in the wrong way. One of the things that Lynn and I are working so hard to change is to try to educate these parents and tell them, please don't mess with your children. Don't give them blockers. Don't allow them to get the surgeries or get on any cross-sex hormones. Just let them vibrate in love and light and let them live their lives.
Well, that really closes their spirits up is what it does.
Yes.
You know, when you put those outside foreign substances in their body, it really closes up their spirits being able to develop.
Yes.
Yes. This is what I believe. That until you connect, okay, so each person's got to connect to themselves. Let me tell you what a connection is. When you connect, you're saying you're actually in like a 10 or 15-minute, just a guided connection in the beginning, because you don't know how to bring you into existence yet. But once you do it frequently, it becomes like breathing now, right? So in a connection, you're disengaging the mind as who you are, and you're activating yourself as who you are, and you're presencing the statement, what is there for me to know? So let's say I'm a parent. I have a child. The child is like, you know, like both male, female, they're being dynamic, they love pink and blue and everything. They're in everything. So I, as a parent, when I connect, I'm connecting to what is there for me to know about being with my child from myself. It is there that what arises is that knowing that activates their self. And see, what's happening is without connecting, that parent would never have the access to taking the action that would allow for that journey and that child and for them to be in a different journey. Because for the mind, it's really operating in a fear-based vibration.
Yes. And in that fear-based vibration, that parent wants to protect their child, or they think they're protecting their child by fitting them into a male or female box that society is used to, instead of allowing the little boy to be as feminine as the little boy wants to be, or the little girl to be as masculine as she wants to be, without having to alter their bodies, or without having to place them in a gender box.
Or for them to be a little bit of both.
Or or to be two-spirited, which is, I believe, every human being has a yin and a yang, and we're here to learn how to balance those beautiful energies.
Well, what's happening is that all of the paradigms that once existed are no longer applicable. And the fear that we're in, or you could say the answers that we're seeking, cannot come from outside of us. Because the shift will not occur by a government giving us the shift, or a group of people coming together and saying this is the answer. The shift will occur when each of us are having our actions come from ourselves, distinct from our mind, because our self is who we are.
Definitely.
I think it's fascinating.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Oh, go ahead, Indira.
So the thing is that, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, how people know the word meditation, right? And the thing is that connecting is the next level beyond meditation. Because while meditation is quite in the mind, what a connection is activating yourself as you. You're not quieting the mind only, you are disengaging the mind as you. And you're listening to yourself. You could say it is that intuitive point of view that will always evoke the unique answers for you in that moment. And it's different for everybody now. And that's why trying to find answers that fit to a group or so on isn't working. Definitely. So what happens is we keep making more identifications. Oh, this group is this. Oh, that group is this. Oh, you mean you have a feeling that maybe you're in your wrong body? Oh, this is what there is to do. And what's totally getting missed is that the energy that we embody now is both male and female, like combined equally. It's for the evolution of a new world, a new way to see things, a new way to bring forth how we're going to live life, a new way to experience and reveal more dimensions of life. And that's what's going to arise now.
It's part of the healing of the species. And talking about healing of the species, who are we as a species and as a whole that feels so fragmented, in your opinion?
Yes. Well, you know, the fragmentation that we're experiencing is an ongoing disconnect from our true self. You know, there was a nurse that did a study because she was with patients that was in their last dying days, and the number one thing they said is they wish that they lived true to themselves. Well, here's what I'm saying. You can't live true to yourself when your actions are coming from your mind. You have to have your actions come from yourself to live true to yourself, because you're not your mind. And so the fragmentation is, it's no longer fulfilling. You can't be fulfilled just like trying to look outside of yourself for answers anymore. You can be informed, but when the mind is taking the knowledge, which you could find everywhere, I mean, you could Google everything, and defining you from the information outside of you, you become lost.
And that's what tends to happen to humanity, because we're always searching outside and never looking within. And all this paradigm that we're seeing, we see something on TV, we want it. We want to be like that person that is being advertised on the television. We see a little boy playing with cars, and it's like, okay, I want to be a little boy playing with cars too. And it's we push ourselves away from ourselves and are never finding true happiness or true connection, because everything is out here instead of going with here.
But again, I go back to the whole concept that Christianity taught me, and that was to look outside of myself, to pray to a God who would hear my prayers and then would answer, you know. And I think that probably in America anyway, Christianity is probably one of the biggest detractors of people ever being able to find themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's done on purpose, in my opinion, because they keep people divided like that. They could control us.
Well, you know what's great about here's what's really amazing about this whole conversation of a new paradigm of self, because you don't have to make the current paradigm wrong about anything. And that's what's really remarkable, because you know what? In the current paradigm, you can live a great life. You can be very religious. You can do all those things. You can have a lot of money. You can have a little money. You can just live and die. But here's the distinction, is you're in a body to be who you are. But if you spend your whole life living from your mind, you misidentified the whole reason you showed up in your physical form. Because here's the deal. You didn't show up to get married and have children, or to get a job and make money, or to acquire a lot of wealth, or to have all the things. And you can have all those things. Well, how you know that that's not what it's about is because when you leave, you don't even take your body with you. So why this paradigm is such a breath of fresh air. It's something to embody, is that the paradigm of self has never existed before now. We talk about it. We have very evolved conversations about our inner self and going within and all of that, but it still exists in the current paradigm. And it is only when you connect and then you listen, trust, and act to yourself, from yourself, are you truly bringing you into life. And so this is why have the religion, have the great things in life, do all of those things, but know that they are in the current paradigm. So if you're connecting and you get, yes, I want to go to church, fine, but you're there from yourself, not from your mind. Or if you connect and you get, you know what, I experience myself. Here's the thing about connecting to yourself. You will only ever land in the highest expression of you, so you don't have to question what you're getting from yourself. So so that's why this paradigm, it becomes almost wants to happen. Just like at some point, what wanted to happen is to know that the world wasn't flat, it's round. It wants to happen because if somebody is embodying both, if we're now in the energy of male and female and we keep going to the mind to identify who we are, we'll say 1 year will be female, next year will be male, next year will be female. It's going to be confusing. But when you go to yourself, you can be centered in who you are as you experience yourself. Oh, I like this. I like to do this. I like to dress like this. I like to act like this. And you can be okay with who you are because that's the nature of self. The nature of self is to be who you are, exactly as you are, and to know that all is well.
But that seems to be the conflicting argument within the trans community, is that they always say that they're going to change themselves physically in order to become their authentic self. And I think that just seems to be quite the oxymoron for someone to say that I have to go outside of myself.
They pathologize
to be
myself. They get a
myself.
condition, and they get gender dysphoria. And there's no dysphoria. I mean, that is all mind-based. That's all pathology-based. If we go into your heart space and realize that you are perfect the way you are where you need to be, and just embrace that spirit and learn and grow from your everyday experience, from being around the people that you're with, from connecting.
Well, this is the thing, because Lynn, I heard in an interview you said that even when you do make those changes, you find out later you're still alone and not, and you know, you didn't get the fulfilling relationship or the life you thought. Here's the thing: there is in the paradigm of the mind, there's a picture. There's pictures that the mind is always evoking, and we're always chasing after the picture. So see, when you are connecting, it's a new state. For example, so, you know, will I ever do anything? Maybe will I ever have, you know, Botox or face? I don't know. But, you know, if I connect and I'm to myself and it's there to take the action and I take the action, what happens is that the vibration and resonance in which you take the action honors you. So it's very different than if it's coming from the mind, because when it's coming from the mind, it's that you're not okay. All isn't well. Something's got to happen. This is what you need to, should do, ought to do, need to do, have to do to be you. When you're coming from self, the actions you get to take, you could choose to or not choose to. The fact is, all is always well as it is.
Exactly.
And then you'll get whatever action you get to take.
Is there ever a case where doing something to physically alter yourself will actually bring you more in line with the true self that's inside of you?
Well, it depends on the individual, because if you're connected to yourself and you get the action from you there, it'll be aligned with you. But here's the other piece. It's the ongoingly connecting. So now here you are, you did whatever you did, and now you're out in the world to create a relationship. See, the thing around this, even the transgender and all of that, the energy is huge. You so have to go outside of yourself to find yourself, because you're living in a paradigm that already has so many energies coming at you about who you are, that it takes an enormous amount of energy to stay centered in yourself. It's practically impossible. And I feel that is why and as the self, identifying yourself distinct from your mind gives you a pathway to a fulfilling life. Because, for example, in one of the interviews you did, where even like finding a partner, knowing you could find a partner, if you rely on your mind, you will go wrong in circles for a decade and end up feeling like it's hopeless. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I also see like when people go to a therapist or to try to seek some sort of advice from somebody who knows nothing about you, they're going to lead you in the wrong direction because they're following the same energy wavelength as your mind, their mind and your mind, and it's like going in circles and getting nowhere. When people just would surrender to self and realize that self can lead you wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
it actually centers you, and it brings you into your life the fulfillment of the experience you're here for. You know, so the conception chapter in the book starts with the journey of self continues, meaning the only reason you're here in this physical form is to experience you. So if you're experiencing you and you're like, you know, you are you, actually, I actually believe we had to deal with AIDS, and then we have to deal with cancer, and now we have to deal with, you know, the gays, and then we have to deal with transgender. It's all designed to bring stuff up to the surface for humanity.
It's all a journey of growth, and it's all part of what needs to happen to evolve as a species.
We do, because we can no longer have the misidentification that our mind is who we are. The more we do that, the more we live in an experience that you can't find who you are. And it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And especially now in this community, as you said, a child acts a particular way and the parent is now like labeling them.
Yes.
now, we all know that meditation is a tool used by many to connect. Do you use meditation as a vehicle in your practice?
I actually don't. I say meditation exists in what I call the current paradigm. And it's great. It facilitates a lot for people. But I only connect because a connection is very active. When you do a connection, you're saying that you're not your mind. That doesn't happen in meditation. Meditation is in the paradigm of the mind. You can use meditation to quiet the mind or slow the mind down. But when you connect, you're actively saying that in your physical form, in this moment of now, what there is to act, is to listen, trust, and act from yourself. It's like turning up the volume of what yourself is communicating, not what your mind is communicating. And when you start to do that, you actually develop your capacity to tell the difference between your mind and self, and life alters.
So in other words, meditation would be like the prerequisite, like the appetizer, learning how to quiet the mind. Connecting is you've already learned how to quiet the mind, so the mind doesn't get in the way anymore, and you go directly into that connection. So.
Well, actually, Mark, you don't ever have to ever know how to meditate to do a connection, because a connection is a totally different space.
Interesting.
You don't need to quiet the mind. You don't need to know. You just, what you're doing is you're bringing forth the knowing that you have a mind and you have a self. You could say we all know we have a body, mind, and spirit, which I'm calling the self. So we have this mind and we have this self. But from the moment you imagine you were born, and what you see is a body, a baby, right? So we're set up from the time we're born to identify the body and the mind as who we are. So we miss the whole thing for our whole life. We miss that the self is who we are. So now when you connect, you're saying, oh, I get it. I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. I am the self. This is the me that lives on beyond my body. This is who I really am, because the mind is a mechanism. It's a highly sophisticated computer that is designed to have us exist in this physical realm. We need the mind to exist in the physical plane, but when we're no longer in the plane, we really are who we are, this energy, this force, this vibration called our spirit or self. So that's what a connection is. A connection is tuning out the mind and tuning into yourself.
So you would say that it's tuning out the temporal body in any way that it comes in, as a mind, as a body, and focusing all the energies into our eternal being that we are.
Right, the self.
Well, very good, Lina. Here's the only part is we don't need to take the body out because the mind and self is very distinct, and the body itself has an energy onto its own, and that's a whole other conversation. But yes, you are tuning in to that eternal vibration called you.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
and that eternal vibration called you is a little bit of what Mark said before. It's the blueprint for your true you.
So what obstacles do most people face in self-awareness and enlightenment?
Well, it's just that they don't yet know how to connect. They haven't used the tool of connecting. And it's simple. I mean, first of all, in the book, in the chapters, I have MP3 links so you can put it in and do your connections. So the book itself brings the mind and self, and you do these exercises that are all on MP3s, and it actually guides you to experience the shift between mind and self, and then it actually guides you into a connection. So what happens is you begin to use the tools, and then what happens is you actually find yourself having more of yourself start to come forth than your mind. And so what you find is suddenly you'll find yourself going, wait a second now. Oh, should I go right or left? Oh, wait a second now. That's my mind. No, this is where I need to take the action. And you'll start to cross that intuitive part of you more. And you'll go, you know what? No, I shouldn't do that. No, that's not true. That's not me. This inner knowing of who you are starts to rise up. It becomes you. You start to embody it. You start to experience it. You start to hear it, and you start to act from it more.
So the mind actually only does whatever its environment teaches it to do, and it's only subject to the limitations of what surrounds it, whereas the inner self is full of so much more.
It's got wisdom.
Innate ability.
Wisdom.
Yes. See, yes, it's great, Lina. The mind is, the role of the mind is for survival. This is what the mind does. The mind says, okay, here you are in a body, and you need to survive this life, and you need to do whatever it takes to make it in this physical plane. That's what the mind does. Now, you're not going to get rid of the mind. The mind's always there. But what if when the mind can become a tool for why you're here? Hey, then you're like being you.
So I like to say that the mind comes from like a reptilian type of existence, flight, fight, needs water, shelter, and things of that nature. And it's just like you said, it's kept up in survival. But the inner self, the heart space is our spirit being that's connected to our higher self. Is that?
Yes. And here's the thing that this paradigm creates, that you're in yourself right now. You know, I grew up Roman Catholic, okay? So, you know, it was like, you could, in Roman Catholic, it's like, you know, Jesus came to say that the Holy Spirit dwells and lives within you. You are made in the likeness of God. Okay, but in this new paradigm, you don't, it's nowhere around you, above you, out, behind you, on your backside. It's there. It's you being you.
Consciousness.
So you accessing answers at any given moment for any situation and anything that's occurring from yourself, it brings you into an immediate centering of what the action you're taking is aligned with the life that fulfills you.
Now, you mentioned in your bio that you could not commit to the typical paradigm. Why is that, and why should we?
Well, here's the deal, Lina. I am providing this conversation not because I want to from my mind, but because it is what's unfolding from myself. So I could not, because it didn't make sense to me. It just, and I know there's a lot of people who have had those experiences, but they didn't have access to how to connect, listen, trust, and act from themselves. So we shouldn't live in a paradigm of the mind, because it's not who we are. When I experience myself as who I am, I could be here because I could act for myself, which is me. So the paradigm we live in is keeping us more and more disconnected from who we are. And that's why my journey is sharing these tools, so that everybody could use them in their life all the time. And once you start to connect, you start to connect to your parents, your siblings, your partners, your body, around people. When you start to be around people and they're acting however, I mean, the thing that's coming up now of how people are, you have to get that that's not authentic to who they really are. That's how strong the mind is defining our reality.
And that's why we live, I believe, in such war and such turmoil and so many diseases, whether physical diseases or mental diseases, because we are living from the mind and not from our true self.
Exactly. That is so, and my journey is to make it easy for everyone. You know, I want to have on the website, I just have you download it, you listen to it. I'll be doing like 30-day programs for people to just listen to a connection, access yourself, take the action. It's going to be simple, effortless, and natural, so we could get this conversation out, because it's disconnecting us from living who we are. And even kids, even the children, imagine a parent connecting to their child, to the what is there for me to know, and getting the answers unique to them with their child. Because what happens when you connect, you're activating yourself and the self of the other person. So even though they're not connecting, when you're acting from yourself, they start to align in their journey with their self. And we're still trying to take a square peg and put it in a round hole, and we keep doing that, and it's starting to break down, but we don't know where to go for the answers.
Can you tell us more about your book that you would want your our viewers to know about?
Yes. So the book is on, it's on Amazon. It's also in all the bookstores, mostly online, and it creates this new context that you're not your mind, and who you are as yourself, and that starts in the conceptions chapter. And then there's a chapter that talks about the mind, the role of the mind, the journey of the mind. And then the next chapter talks about the self, the role of the self, the journey of the self. And then you go into a connection. And in the book, there is an actual connection that you do, and you start to experience yourself and listening to yourself. And then there's listen, trust, and act, and it goes through all the steps. And then the last chapter on you actually tells you how to now live your life from yourself.
Interesting. So can you explain a little bit about your teaching methods and paradigm?
Yeah, so it's the teaching methods is mostly what I provide a lot is to begin to train to not like train you, kind of guide you on knowing the difference between the mind and the self, because that's what you deal with when you first start to connect. Because from the time you were born, you were listening to your mind. So, for example, in the chapter on the mind, I have exercises where you listen to a guided connection that have you hear your mind different from yourself. So, so my tools are designed to support you in getting more connected to yourself, telling the difference, because the mind's not going anywhere. And so you start to have a greater capacity. So I'm with my husband and he is saying something to me. And my mind's like, look, I don't need anybody in my life. I'm cool, okay? I'm like independent. I'm strong. I don't need to listen to this. This is crap. Oh, forget that. You know, the thing, right? And because I'm in the awareness of my mind and myself as distinct dimensions of me. Now, before this conversation, you don't have that. You only got the mind. Now you have the mind and you have the self. But even if you don't have the self, you're very aware it's the mind. And I'm like, okay, that's my mind. It's like doing whatever it does whenever he says this to me. And in that moment, rather than me pouncing all over him and saying, what the hell is your problem? What's going on? Like, you know, I don't need you. I don't need you to tell me anything. Oh, you know, what we do. I mean, you know, it's being human. I don't have to take that action. I could go like, oh, okay, I'm not even going there because that's the mind. So my tools really train you how to do that. It guides you. It develops your capacity to know the difference between your mind and self.
Now, we find that many in the LGBT community really struggle with self-acceptance and unconditional love. What advice do you have for the community?
Well, it's really interesting because that community, you could say, right, has, like, if you're born, it's interesting because in the conception chapter I say that your choice to be here is you born into the parents, the situation, the journey to evoke what it's going to evoke for you, right? You could say maybe they're pioneers, they're pioneering something, because being born into this community is to be set up to be like outside the paradigm that life lives in, outside of the norm. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So automatically you've got stuff coming at you. You feel uncomfortable or you feel removed. You might be bullied. You got all these things. You can't say who you are. You know what I mean? You go through so much. So you start to experience yourself being so removed from joy and love and happiness and what, you know, that it gets harder and harder to find that center. So the first thing I would do is to acknowledge your journey. You know, like, look, you know, I'm in this community and I'm already set up to experience myself as an outsider. And what that does is evoke more of my mind. Like it makes me feel all these feelings of being like not whole, not complete. Something's wrong with me. Is that communicating?
Well, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that the community itself and the LGBT creates this paradigm of self-hatred, and it almost feeds what they're receiving from the outside. I'm a big believer that you bring into your life what you create. What your mind thinks, what you create is what happens, or magically, what's the word I'm looking for? It just becomes around you, evolves around you, and you create sometimes people being angry at you, making fun of you, because you walk around with that in your head.
Well, that is so powerful what you're saying, because one of the distinctions in this paradigm of self is that it's never outside of you. Can you imagine that paradigm? Because in the paradigm of the mind, it's outside of you. Something is being done to you. In the paradigm of self, when you're in life where everything coming at you is like darts being thrown at you, and you have to create a context that, hold on, let me connect to myself for what there is for me to know about what's happening. You disengage it. That's huge. You know, almost this community from the mind has to isolate itself to survive, and that's what the mind does. And that's why your program is attempting to break through that.
People have to take control and stop blaming others and realizing that you are the painter of your canvas. You have the key to your happiness. You can't be playing the violin of life and blaming everybody else and all your situation on things outside of you. You are the master of your universe.
Yes, that's so great what you're saying, Mark. And now, in that you just spoke, they can connect and have the answers that's unique to them. Because that, for me, is really the only way, or else you're going to keep living, being a victim of everything that's going on. And creating a community that keeps isolating itself, distinct from being the contribution you are to the journey of human beings, because you are a contribution.
Exactly. So what message do you have for those seeking spiritual knowledge?
Well, you know, one of the things that's arising for me is that in this community, it could become difficult to seek that, because you experience being so different. You have to find a common place to put yourself in, that you go there and you forget to go to your own spiritual journey. So the first thing I would say is, you got to take time out to get on your journey. You could be in the community, but walk your own journey. Do not identify with the community as you. Get into your own journey of discovering yourself, accessing yourself, going to yourself, finding answers from yourself, and bring you to the community. Because what happens is, when you go to the community and you get lost in the community, you are forever lost, because you're not bringing you even to the community. So you've lost your uniqueness, the you that came here to make the impact you came to make on the planet.
Exactly. It becomes like a herd mentality. You know, it's like a sheeple mentality, and that's why there's all these fights and all this battle, because people are not even looking within. They're just connecting to this battle, and that's what usually the community is all about. They're always battling. They're always angry. They're always fighting something, and you get drawn into that energy, which doesn't allow any healing to take place, and you don't ever get to self-discover.
Yeah, but also imagine if you took your journey on and you became the voice that, see, because fundamentally, even though the anger, when you're in the community, you got to isolate yourself, because you can't bring out your voice. You can't be you. See, to be you is not to go, you don't have to go make $1 million and be successful in life. You don't have to go climb some ladder and be something. You simply have to act from your authentic self. You simply have to speak from yourself. And when you're doing that, you're changing, you're shaping life around you. And when you have a community that is so strong and they have isolated themselves, it almost becomes fearful to stand out and be different within that community. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, very true. Totally, totally. Is there anything else you would like to say before we end the show and tell our viewers where they could get your book? They could also go on our website and you have a page and they could click to your webpage directly. But go ahead and give them the information.
Great. I do have to say for any of your listeners that are in the New York area that on November the 14th, I'm doing an event in Manhattan. It's on my website on the event page. It's IndiraDyal.com, and you go to event page, and it's a 3-hour, and it introduces you to this whole conversation. You experience connecting to yourself. You come with an area of your life to connect to. It's amazing. It is dynamic and amazing, and you go there. I'd love for you, because it's one of the ways to really begin your journey. And of course, the website has downloads and MP3s you can listen to. You can start to experience what it is to connect. I invite you to go and get the book and just start to use it. Sign up for the community also, because I send out new tools all the time for you to use and participate in. I just want to be here for you to live the life you came here to experience.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure you've been a treat for our viewers and listeners, because it's important to empower people. Not just complain. Oh, I hate my life. There's nothing good about my life. I want to get this surgery. I want to do this. Right. And they don't do anything for their spirit. It's all about their physical body and their mind creation. So they need to start focusing on their heart self and focusing on connecting with their greater good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both. It was such a joy. I really, really loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure was ours.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in yet again. And remember, next week, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Don't know exactly what we're going to have next week. It's a surprise for you. And we want to tell you that please remember that it's important to love yourself, your true self, not what you think you should be, not the image that you're seeing in the mirror or trying to create in the mirror, but love the inner self.
What was it that you used to say before we closed every show?
I love you, but remember to always love yourselves too. That is very important. All right, guys, thank you so much, and stay tuned for next week.